Certain streams of ancient wisdom hold a profound depth few have explored. This wisdom doesn't come from one person, but flows like a river through time, carrying the silent history of the human soul. This universal memory, which some call the great tapestry of existence, holds unspoken details about the great masters, their lineage, and their true spiritual nature. The teachings say this tapestry is woven not by human hands, but by the resonance of every life. By attuning ourselves to this source, we uncover a timeless insight that has been waiting patiently, an insight concerning not only a great teacher, but the source from which he came. From a space of deep awareness, we find that this master was an awakened soul, a consciousness that had journeyed through many forms. But these teachings also suggest his arrival in the world unfolded in a way that transcends simple stories. It points to a cosmic current, a reality far deeper than any single narrative can contain. This teacher was the embodiment of a higher frequency. The keepers of this wisdom knew that such an insight could gently shake the foundations of established beliefs. For this reason, these perspectives were often met with silence or quietly passed from heart to heart. But now, after a long cycle, the world seems to have cultivated a readiness to listen. Most remarkably, this stream of wisdom never sought to build a religion. It has no need for temples, doctrines, or followers, only for quiet contemplation of truth. Those who shared it would enter a state of stillness, of deep connection, and bring forth profound visions. In this clarity, they saw not only the potential pathways of the future, but the long journeys of souls, the harmony of the cosmos, and higher consciousness at play. It was in such a state that this insight about the master's origin was perceived. And in that stillness, a truth was shared that remains deeply transformative for many to this day. His father was not what tradition has taught us. Before we journey deeper, let us acknowledge the shared space we create together. Feel free to share in the comments the city, the state, or the country from which you are connecting with this stream. Let's feel the quiet presence of this global community and the reach of our collective intention. Simply write where you are, and let us expand this field of awareness. Ancient wisdom teaches that the master's soul was shaped beyond the flow of ordinary time. It speaks of a great council of light, a symphony of elevated consciousness that meticulously prepared for the arrival of such a bright spirit. This preparation involved a spiritual source that was not a being in a form we know, nor was it physical. It was a current of pure intelligence that connected with Mary's spirit in a way that lies beyond our current scientific understanding. The master's essence was sent, not created like other souls are. This insight changes the very landscape of his origin. The people of that time were not yet prepared for this. The formal institutions, perhaps fearing a loss of their familiar structure, did not create a space for this perspective. The sources of this wisdom, though revered by seekers and mystics, were kept far from the public square. Yet, like all deep truths, this one found its way to flow across the generations. The records were kept, the teachings were preserved, and today, we can approach these messages with a new stillness. This wisdom tradition wasn't trying to prove anything. It simply offered what was perceived. And what was perceived is that the master's journey begins before our world. A soul that had been part of the dance of creation, that walked among ancient civilizations, and that finally came to walk with us. And for this arrival, the body was brought forth by a force that carries no human name. This is the heart of the insight we are now ready to explore. The journey begins now, with the courage to look into the unseen and an open heart for what unfolds next. The story of the master's birth, passed down for centuries, presents a conception through divine inspiration. However, a deeper current of wisdom proposes something more expansive, a truth that formal history has often overlooked. According to these teachings, the master's arrival was orchestrated by higher intelligences, but with elements intentionally veiled in the common texts. It was not merely a wondrous conception, but a cosmic, interdimensional unfolding. And the question that arises is, why was this veiled? During the first centuries of our era, Many spiritual accounts were set aside, edited, or lost. Gatherings like the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD and other formal meetings shaped what would become the accepted narrative. The understanding of the soul's long journey was removed. The Master's connection to earlier ages was erased. And most significantly, the true nature of his spiritual origin was simplified and reframed. These wisdom traditions were not alone in this awareness, but they were remarkably clear in their description of what truly took place. For them, the Master's story is far vaster than the one we have been told. The figure of Mary remains sacred in these revelations, but the conception she experienced was a phenomenon that moved beyond the laws of ordinary biology. It was not a physical union, nor a standard gestation. It was as though Mary had been held in a field of pure energy, a conscious, divine intelligence which awakened within her the formation of the Christ, light being. This event was described in the wisdom traditions as having been planned for millennia. It was not an improvisation, but part of a much higher design, and this completely reframes how we view the biblical narrative. The traditions say that the truth of the Master's birth was simplified to align with the beliefs of that era. People were not ready to embrace an energetic conception, and the religious leaders of antiquity understood they might lose their guiding role if they shared the entire truth. So they chose to create a symbolic, more relatable version where a divine father acts in a human sense, and Joseph takes on the protective role. But the story behind the story remained vibrant in the subtle planes, waiting for the right season to be shared openly. Understanding this perspective does not diminish the Master. On the contrary, it elevates his mission and his essence even further. He is not just a messenger. He is the very meeting point between the material and the spiritual. His arrival in the world is a bridge, built by the hands of divine consciousness itself. The true father of the Master, according to these traditions, is a force with no name and no face, but with a presence that shapes universes. To share this insight is not to deny the miracle, but to expand it, placing us before a new spiritual invitation. This historical simplification, therefore, was not a mere omission. It was a choice to preserve human structures at the cost of a vaster, divine truth. But now, as we revisit these deep teachings, we have a chance to walk that path again, to look at the Master with new eyes, and to understand that his birth was not only an act of faith, but a cosmic event. This is the second key to understanding the age-old secret these teachings reveal, and the veil we are now gently beginning to lift. According to this wisdom, the true father of the Master was not a being in human form, nor an entity seated on a heavenly throne. It was something far more vast, a cosmic consciousness, an intelligence that flows beyond the boundaries of space and time. This energy not only initiated the Master's presence, but also nurtured him on other planes long before his physical arrival. The traditions describe this source as an original spark, vibrating in perfect harmony with the wellspring of all creation. It is not a paternal figure with human characteristics, but a conscious field of pure light and intention. It's a revelation that redefines the very concept of spiritual fatherhood. This consciousness did not require a physical body to act. It manifested in Mary as a vibrational frequency that realigned her own matter and activated a divine gestation. The wisdom keepers saw this as a phenomenon similar to what we might now call energetic imprinting, a sacred fusion between the divine and the material. Mary was chosen because her soul already carried a spiritual preparedness cultivated over ages. She did not just accept this mission, she was in harmony with it. But the agent of this conception was a consciousness that had never before anchored itself in the physical world as we know it. The teachings explained that this celestial father was an intelligence that worked with laws transcending the dimensions of matter. Its language was vibration and its vehicle was light. This consciousness is not limited to one name, one religion, or one culture. It is the essence of all that is pure, true, and eternal. In bringing forth the Master, this consciousness knew he would need to live as a human, to feel as a human, yet carry the memory of his higher origin. And this inner balance is what would make his mission so powerful and transformative for all humanity. The presence of this cosmic source was so potent that the Master, even in his childhood, showed a wisdom far beyond his years. He spoke with depth, understood spiritual patterns, and had a clear connection to the unseen realms. This wasn't merely because he was a son of God in a symbolic sense, but because his very essence was woven from this living, conscious, and ever-present source. The teachings say this divine energy remained active throughout the Master's life, quietly guiding his steps and choices. It was like an inner compass, impossible to ignore. This vision fundamentally shifts the way we understand the concept of the divine. It ceases to be an external, masculine entity and becomes a living consciousness that breathes through all of creation. The Master was the purest expression of this consciousness. He did not just come in God's name, he came with God's vibrational signature within him. According to this ancient wisdom, this is true spiritual fatherhood, not the act of physical generation, but the imprinting of a divine essence. The body was born of Mary, but the soul was sent, shaped, and nourished by a cosmic source. This is where faith meets spiritual science, where the wonder of life meets the mystery of its origin. The conception of the Master, according to these teachings, was an act of pure divine intelligence, a plan created in silence, operated by an invisible but eternally present consciousness. By understanding who this true Father was, we begin to understand who the Master truly was, and perhaps who we are as well, as particles of that same light. The ancient traditions did not see the Master as a soul created out of nothing for a single mission. To them, he was an ancient spirit, a consciousness that had taken form many times before being born as the Messiah. In their visions, they spoke of previous life journeys that included great spiritual figures, wise kings, and even anonymous teachers in long, lost civilizations. Each of these lifetimes was a part of a meticulously crafted spiritual path. And behind this long journey, there was always a single, guiding force, the cosmic Father who was preparing him for his ultimate purpose. The Master did not arrive fully formed. He was polished, life after life. In each embodiment, this soul underwent profound learning. These traditions say the previous lives were not mistakes, but essential stages in a great process of spiritual refinement. The Master's soul carried within it the memory of human struggle, of falling, and of rising again. This allowed him to connect with all human pain, with all our shadows, without losing his light. The Celestial Father did not just allow these experiences, it oversaw them, ensuring the soul's connection to the source remained unbroken. This is what made the Master such a pure channel for the divine will. This insight shatters the notion that the Master appeared suddenly, ready to perform miracles. On the contrary, he was prepared with extraordinary spiritual precision. In each life, he planted seeds of wisdom and love. In each culture he touched, his presence marked a step forward in the collective consciousness. These wisdom keepers asserted that before his birth in Bethlehem, the Master's soul was already known in the spiritual realms as the Christus, or the Anointed One. His birth was simply the final physical expression of an eternal plan. This plan involved such deep refinement that it required periods of cosmic stillness between lives. During these times, the Master's soul would undergo energetic realignment on the higher planes. This wasn't just rest, it was a form of training. In this space between worlds, the spiritual Father would instruct him directly, far from the density of the physical world. It was as if the soul was being recalibrated to receive new guidance and expand its purpose. This process is described as a return to the Father's house before descending once more to earth. This perspective makes the Master's mission even more profound. He wasn't chosen by chance, nor was it a divine improvisation. He was the culmination of a plan that began millennia ago, spanning ages, continents, and civilizations. This wisdom shows that each prior incarnation was a difficult yet necessary preparation. And the true Father, this unseen cosmic consciousness, was present at every step, shaping, guiding, and inspiring. The birth in Bethlehem was merely the final chapter of a much more ancient story. If we accept this vision, then we understand that the Master did not come only to save. He came to remind humanity of its divine origin, its connection to the whole, and its dormant potential. And the Father who brought him forth is not outside of us, but within, waiting for each of us to recognize that same divine spark. The Master's journey mirrors our own, and it is this ancient wisdom that gives us the key, a key that has been waiting for us for a very long time. In the traditional telling, Joseph is presented as the Master's earthly father, a righteous man chosen by the divine to be the Messiah's protector. However, according to these ancient teachings, Joseph's mission was much more symbolic than it was biological. He was not the originator of the Master's essence, but the guardian of the physical form that would house a divine soul. The traditions emphasize that the Master's birth involved cosmic forces, and that Joseph accepted his role with profound humility and obedience to a higher will. His presence was crucial, not as a progenitor, but as a pillar of spiritual and physical protection, a man who silently understood the immensity of what was unfolding. Joseph knew in his heart that something much greater was behind Mary's pregnancy. The sacred experience she had was extraordinary, and he was guided by dreams and spiritual signs. These traditions reveal that his dreams were direct communications from a higher plane, coded messages sent by the Master's true spiritual father. Joseph did not question them. He embraced them. His faith transformed him into something more than a craftsman. He became an instrument of the divine plan, and this makes his role worthy of our deep admiration, even if it differed from fatherhood, as we typically understand it. These teachings describe Joseph as a soul who was spiritually prepared for this task. In previous lives, he had developed the virtues of balance, patience, and discernment. His union with Mary was no accident, but the result of two souls whose meeting had been aligned on higher planes. When the Master was born, Joseph saw more than just a child. He saw a living light among humanity. He understood that this soul did not belong to him, but that it was his sacred responsibility to protect it from the harshness of the physical world. This profound awareness made him extraordinary, even if his name has often been spoken of quietly. Unlike traditional heroic figures, Joseph lived in anonymity and silence. He sought no glory, no recognition. His mission was behind the scenes, yet it was fundamental. The traditions describe this kind of dedication as one of the highest acts of spiritual love, to serve without any need for praise. While many may have wondered about the Master's father, Joseph stood firm, knowing his fatherhood was of a different order. He did not create the soul, but he cared for the body the soul inhabited, and that is a role greater than any earthly title. This revelation changes how we see the Master's family. It was not a conventional structure, but a spiritual constellation, coordinated by higher intelligence. Mary, the chosen vessel, Joseph, the guardian, Jesus, the living spark of the cosmic Father. When we understand these roles deeply, we see that all were equally vital, though on different planes. Spiritual fatherhood goes beyond blood. It manifests in responsibility, love, and a sense of sacred duty. The ancient wisdom invites us to look at this story with new eyes. Joseph teaches us that being a father is not always about giving life. Sometimes it is about protecting the life that the universe entrusts to you. He protected the light in the midst of darkness, guided by dreams from a higher realm. And even without understanding it all, he remained steadfast, silent, and present. The Master's true father, as the teachings reveal, was cosmic. But he needed a guardian on earth, and that was Joseph, the man who held the invisible in the hands of his heart. Among the most powerful insights from these ancient traditions is the idea that the Master did not possess ordinary human DNA. His essence was vibrational, his spiritual constitution was unlike any other being's. He did not come from the earth. He was sent to the earth. According to this wisdom, the Master's body was formed from an energetic fusion between the divine plane and Mary's womb. This fusion created a physical structure that could hold the Christic vibration, something our modern science would never be able to detect with conventional tools. It was, quite literally, a body of light adapted for the material world. For these wisdom keepers, the Master's birth was an act of spiritual engineering. There was no genetic intervention in our earthly sense, but rather an energetic encoding. The vibrational field of the Cosmic Father reconfigured Mary's womb, activating a matrix that transcends ordinary biology. This explains why the Master, even as a child, demonstrated uncommon wisdom, empathy, and remarkable abilities. He was in a human body, but he was not confined by it. His spiritual DNA was composed of high frequencies, a code of celestial origin. This perspective also illuminates how the Master could heal with his hands, calm storms, multiply food, and restore life. His body was simply a temporary vessel. What operated through him was his direct and conscious connection to the source of all life. The traditions assert that he had constant, aware access to the universal energy field, the same field that brings worlds into being. This connection made him not just a prophet, but a living doorway between heaven and earth. And all of this was possible because his origin was not material, but vibrational. Even moments of pain and suffering were experienced by him with total spiritual presence. His body could bleed, but his consciousness remained awake and whole. The traditions say that the Master never forgot who he was, not even for a moment. This distinguished him from all other teachers who walked the earth. He didn't just teach love, he was the embodiment of love. And this incarnation was only possible because his constitution was molded from light, not just from ordinary flesh. It is a light that no microscope can capture, but which touches the soul of anyone who listens with an open heart. This understanding also brings a profound calling to each of us. If the Master came with this DNA of light, it suggests that this same potential exists within every human being. Perhaps it is dormant, perhaps it is distorted by the challenges of the world, but it is still present. The teachings tell us that the Master came not only to save, but to awaken this divine spark within us. The DNA of light is a symbol of our true spiritual origin, and he was the first to fully manifest it in the midst of humanity. This revelation lifts us from the realm of blind belief and leads us into the mystery of spiritual science. We are not faced with a myth, but with a plan designed by the hands of infinity. The Master's body was a temple built of pure vibrations, and his birth is proof that the impossible is merely that which we do not yet understand. By accepting that the Master did not originate from the earth alone, we create the space to recognize that we do not belong solely to it either. We are children of the same light, and it is calling us home. Why would such powerful knowledge remain veiled for so long? These truths were shared in whispers between 1910 and 1940, but the words were often ignored, discredited, or silenced. At that time, humanity was still caught in cycles of war, fear, and rigid religiosity. The world was not yet ready to embrace the idea that the true father of the great Master was not a bearded figure in the sky, but a living, cosmic consciousness. What this wisdom brought was too transformative for a society attached to dogma. And so, the secret was kept safe, not for a lack of clarity, but due to a fear of the truth it contained. Many of the records of this wisdom were preserved by faithful families and scholars, but a large portion of the messages were kept from the public eye. The archives about the Master, the soul's journey, and spiritual fatherhood were held in esoteric and mystical circles. The mainstream culture, traditional churches, and academic institutions preferred silence. After all, embracing this perspective would call into question everything from scripture to the power structure of religious organizations, and few were willing to sacrifice their comfort for a deeper truth. The keepers of this wisdom did not seek fame. Their insights often came in a state of quiet trance, where they were not even conscious of what they were saying. When they returned, they themselves did not know the exact words that had flowed through them. But the words were recorded, preserved, and today they can be revisited. It is as if a spiritual time capsule is being opened before our eyes, and its contents are truly profound. The great master came from another origin, with a universal mission, and his true father is beyond any dogma. For these 100 years, a quiet spirituality has kept this flame burning. Small groups of seekers, scholars, and mystics have studied these teachings in secret, with deep reverence. They knew that one day, the time would be right to reveal it all, and that time is now. The world is in a state of great change, and this change calls for a new level of consciousness. Returning to the truth about the Master is also a return to our own divine essence. It is not just a discovery about the past, it is a call toward our future. The keepers knew the time of revelation would arrive. That is why everything was documented with great care: names, dates, visions, specific words. Their messages were so detailed that even the most skeptical among us today would find them difficult to dismiss. We are faced with a spiritual map drawn by those who saw beyond time. And on this map, the birth of the Master is not a myth. It is an event programmed with mathematical precision by the universe itself. The secret was hidden not by chance, but because it required a certain spiritual maturity to be understood. Now that this secret has come to light, it can no longer be ignored. The Master's father, as these traditions revealed, is not who we were taught. He is a field of light, a living source that dwells within us all. This revelation does not oppose faith, it is an update for faith. It invites us to expand our vision, to release labels, and to look upon the divine with deeper eyes. 100 years later, we are finally ready to hear what was whispered to the world when it was not yet listening. This revelation about the Master's true father is not merely a theological detail. It has the power to transform the entire foundation of modern faith. If he was generated by a cosmic consciousness, if his origin is vibrational rather than biological, then our approach to religion needs to be re-examined. Faith can no longer be a matter of fear, blind obedience, or inherited tradition. It must become a pathway to an expanded consciousness. This understanding does not destroy faith, it renews it. It invites us to leave the temple made of stone and enter the temple of the Spirit within. Many feel lost in the face of so many religions, doctrines, and interpretations. But this wisdom offers something simple and profound. Christ is not a religion. It is a state of consciousness. This perspective on the Master's fatherhood does not distance him from us. On the contrary, it brings us closer, because if he was generated by a cosmic force, then that same force also generated us. This makes us all spiritual kin, connected by the same essential light. The impact of this is truly liberating. We no longer need to seek outside of ourselves what already vibrates within. This understanding also brings healing to the wounds inflicted by faith. How many have turned away from the divine because they could not accept the dogmas imposed on them? How many live with guilt, fear, or a sense of being less than? This wisdom shows us that the divine source is not a judge, but a spring that generates consciousness in love. And the great Master was the purest expression of this spring. Knowing he came from a higher plane doesn't make him distant. It makes his mission even more powerful. He descended to our level, fully aware of our shadows, and loved us completely. The impact of these revelations also affects how we relate to the world. When we understand that we are made of the same substance that created the Master, we begin to treat one another with greater empathy. Spirituality ceases to be an escape and becomes a commitment to the light that dwells within all beings. The keepers of this wisdom believed this was the true teaching, the awakening of our inner divinity and recognizing the cosmic Father as the origin of all things leads us directly to this awakening. Many will resist these ideas, and that is natural. Religious structures may fear a loss of control, but the truth, once it is revealed, cannot be unseen. Modern faith must choose between continuing to repeat the past or opening itself to the revelation of the Spirit. This is not about abandoning faith, but purifying it. And this purification involves understanding that the Master's true Father is the same one who lives within each of us, a Father that doesn't punish, but guides. This is the great shift this wisdom proposes. We are not facing a new dogma, but a new horizon. The Master did not come to start a religion, but to reconnect us to the source. And now, a century later, this call resurfaces with even greater force. The impact of this truth will be felt not just in churches, but in the souls that it awakens. The faith of the future is consciousness. And this consciousness begins with the courage to ask, what if the true Father of the Great Master has always been within me? We have reached the end of this shared reflection, but perhaps it is just the beginning of something much greater within you. This ancient wisdom has offered us a hidden map, and today, with an open mind, you have walked this spiritual path. Now you have a new perspective that the Master's true Father was not of this earth, but a living force that also pulses within every conscious being. This truth doesn't ask you to abandon your faith. It invites you to transcend it. And perhaps for the first time, you will feel that a quiet part of you has always known this. But what about you? Are you ready to revisit everything you've been taught about the divine, about the Master, and about life itself? Leave your honest reflection in the comments below. We would be honored to know how this truth resonated with you. And if this message touched your soul, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Follow our channel so you do not miss the next spiritual insights that can change your life. Together, we are just beginning to awaken.